I thought it would be fun to do a 2024 year in review with books. So this is going to be pretty honest. Not all of these are ones that I liked. This is genuinely just this is everything that I read in 2024 that I have a physical copy of. So let's get into it. There is also like no rhyme or reason to the order of these. They fell over and are no longer in chronological order of how I read them. So I'm just going to go with what's on top first. So I have Mortal Queens by Victoria McCombs. This book was really fun. I ended up listening to it on audiobook. It's basically like a take on the Fae, but it's clean. So that was really nice. I'm anxious to listen to the rest of them because I feel like this book was very quick and I was like, wanted more, and so I'm excited to read the rest of the series via audiobook, but I have a physical copy of this one. So next up is Night Falls on Predicament Avenue by Jamie Jo Wright. This was when I was on a Jamie Jo Wright kick. I think I listened to like 3 books in a row. This one is not my favorite of the ones I listened to, although it was very good. I will say that the resolution of this one is a little on the creepier side, but I really did like the contemporary main characters in this book a lot. They were really cute. Next up from Jamie Jo Wright was The Vanishing at Castle Moreau. This one is in my top 2 of her books. I've read, my other favorite is The Curse of Misty Wayfarer. This is my either first or second favorite, depending on the day. I can't decide who, but this one was so good. The actual mystery of it was so great. The one thing I will say about this one that was like a little bit of an eye roll is that the main character falls in love with the movie star, and she's like a little goo-goo eyes for him, which is kind of annoying at times, but other than that, this is my favorite. Next up is The Lost Castle by Christy Cameron. This is like 3 timelines. I listened to this while driving, and this one was a little hard just because to listen to, simply because of how many timelines. There's 3 different storylines going on in this book, which is a lot, but it was beautiful and is so great, and I loved it. So this was a top pick for me. The London House by Catherine Ray. This is probably a 3-star for me. I didn't love it. The vibes were there, and like the fashion side of it. Is this the fashion one? Yes, this one deals with like the fashion scene during World War II, and she's like kind of uncovering her family's secrets. The reason I had beef with this one is because the male main character, no, not the male main character, sorry, the love interest is a jerk. And like an unredeemable jerk. Like he just genuinely did not do anything redeeming or nice at all in this book. But yet she constantly was like, oh, well, why do I still like him? I'm like, girl, I don't know, because he's driving me crazy. So that was my beef with that book, but the vibes were great and I really loved that. I reread To Kill a Mockingbird, annotated it because I love this book so much. I probably read it like 5 or 6 times in my lifetime, probably will continue to read it. Atticus Has My Heart Forever. I reread this because I got to see the Broadway play, which was not as good as the book, but so good. This one was another audiobook, When Crickets Cry by Charles Martin. So good. And I would say this one, I don't always recommend his books because sometimes they're not like fully clean. I have some like younger audience members. I would say this one was a clean one. Like there's definitely like they're married and like they're trying to have a kid, so like that happens. But I think he had some like discussions with a young man about sex appeal and stuff like that he was doing it in a very godly way. So I actually feel like it was a really good conversation to be had. So this book was fantabulous. Like again, rip your heart out though, like lots of tears, lots of tissues. I was like while listening to it for like the last 20 minutes. So there's that. That one was so good. Love it. 5 stars. Next up is The Story Thieves by James Riley. I picked this up because I've been trying to like read more middle grade just to get a feel on like what middle grade sounds like and what the vibes are and stuff. I read about this much into it. I DNF'd this simply because it got weird. We started talking about zombies and I was like, I'm out. It was really interesting and unique though. I really loved how it's like talking about like an author and like how they feel about their characters and how the characters feel about the author. So that was really, really fun. Like these characters inside of a book come to life. So it was very entertaining. But yeah, it was like I got to the part where they started talking about zombies and I was just like, that's not my favorite thing. So I'm done. This one, There Bleeds the Light, is chonky. This is by Andrea Renee. Favorite book of the year. Okay, so next book is There Bleeds the Light by Andrea Renee. This is book 2 in the Song of the Soldas series. I read the first one think it came out last year or the year before, and it was my top book of the year. This one is my next top book of the year. So good. Nice and chunky, gorgeous, which makes sure you get a physical copy. Like, I know ebook is great too, but the physical copies are so gorgeous. She does like so much beautiful artwork. Like, you have to have a physical copy. So this was so good. 5 million stars. Never Fall Again, Gossamer Falls. This is by Lynn Blackburn. I listened to this on audiobook as well. This one I really liked because I feel like the romance was like more chill. It was like more backseat, and like the mystery itself wasn't super creepy. Like, it was just like a really, it almost felt like a contemporary romance in the sense that like the mystery was like more chill. So I actually really liked this one. Like, it has lots of small town vibes, and just like the romance itself is like, I love when it's like a single mom with a kid, or a single dad with a kid, and like the other person falling in love with the child as well as the parent. Like, this one was one of those, and it was so cute. So I really liked that one. I also read The Torch Keepers by Hosanna Emily. So I've had this one on my shelf for a while, but I finally got around to reading it. It was beautiful. I also kind of part read, part listened to it because it's available on audiobook now. So can't recommend enough. This was really good, fun, non-magical fantasy with kind of like, it genuinely has like, I know it's called The Torch Keepers, but it genuinely feels like new church vibes, and I really liked that. So love that. This was one of my like really fun experiences this year. So I read all 4 Dune books. Well, not all 4 because there's more than 4, but 4 of them. I'm halfway through the 5th one, and I genuinely don't know if I'm going to finish. But book 1, highly recommend. Freaking loved it. So good. This was my reread of it, and I'm really glad I actually reread it because I got so much more out of it. Really loved book 1. I have a whole content guide on this on my website, so if you are like wanting to know like how to read it and like anything you want to skip, because like there is some content more in the later books that if you want to skip, I actually have like pages on my website, so definitely check that out. But really love book 1. Book 2 was actually my favorite. Like, I loved book 2. The suspense, I don't know how Frank Herbert wrote conversations with so much suspense that I literally like could not put it down. I was like, it was like a 20-page conversation that was so suspense-filled, it was nuts. So anyway, I loved this one. This one might actually be my favorite. There is a scene in this one. Again, check out the content guide because there's a scene in that for sure that there's some nudity in it, so if you want to skip it, it's like not described, but it's also just like weird. So, and then we have the Children of Dune. Again, annotated the crap out of this because I had a different color for different characters. This one was really good too. I feel like, I'm trying to think, because I feel like Messiah was my favorite. Children of Dune was still really good. My best recommendation, if you want to get into the world of Dune, is to genuinely read this as a trilogy and then one. Don't worry about anything else. Read this as a trilogy. Don't get sucked into the hope that the next books are going to be great, because they're not. Just read these. That's my personal opinion. Because I then did God Emperor of Dune. Freaking hated it. It was so bad. Like, I genuinely, okay. It was an experience. I enjoyed the experience. God Emperor of Dune was a really good lesson in reading with discernment, because the whole point is that he's like set himself up as this god figure, but like also he says lies as if they're truth. And so like from a Christian perspective, reading this book, there was a lot that I felt like I was sorting through, but it was kind of fun because it kind of felt like I had to, put on my biblical glasses and like really read it and like read between the lines. And so that was kind of like and there's so many things that he does that is true, and there's so many things that he says that are kind of like half truths. So it's just a really interesting mental read. But the story was so annoying, don't recommend. So if that does not interest you, just don't read it. But I read all 4 of those books, and I'm pretty proud of that. The next book's worse. Don't even bother. This is another audiobook, Breach of Promise by James Scott Bell. This one is like a legal thriller. This was rough. It was like about a guy who was like losing the ability to, like, his wife was suing him for custody basically, so that was really rough. Like, it was genuinely like emotionally intense. So that one was a lot, but it was really good. I do love James Scott Bell's books. It was just like emotionally traumatizing to a degree. Karen Kingsbury, A Distant Shore. This one was good. It wasn't my favorite. I feel like the writing style is harder for me to get into, just having read more deep books. These kind of feel very surfacey, which is good in this sentence because it's about like human trafficking and like an FBI agent and stuff. So that I feel like it was nice to be able to read a little bit cleaner version of that without like so much of the like depths of despair and stuff. So it was good. It just wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's the best book I've ever read in my life. Speaking of best books I've ever read in my life, no, wait, am I missing one? Where is it? I must be missing one, or it's on like a different whatever. But the A Wellspring novels by James R. Rubart. These were my favorite of last year. I binge read them and listened to them and then bought physical copies because they were so good. But the first one is not here. I don't know where it is. My mom probably stole it again because she really likes them too. But this is a trilogy and it's really, really cool. Like if you love, I don't know, it's basically like spiritual warfare, but like literally a physically like applicable. I don't know, because it has like those fantasy elements in the sense of like you're actually seeing like demons or actually seeing like how the enemy works through people. So yeah, anyway, this was really, really cool. I really love this series. I highly recommend if you're like someone who like wants more of the Holy Spirit in fiction, and you want to like dive into that a little bit. Really liked these a lot. I could talk about them forever, so I'm going to put them down. Speaking of which, James L. Rubart's Rooms. This is a completely different book. It's a standalone. I feel like everybody should read this once in their life. Like, I feel like there's something inside of everybody that can be healed by something in this book. It was so good, so trippy, so, like, thrilling and suspenseful. My mom also read this and really, really liked it. So just the spiritual symbolism in it is so good. So yeah, I really, really love Rooms. Highly recommend. I read 19 Steps by Millie Bobby Brown. This was not my favorite. I think the story is cool because it's like her story of her family, but the like writing style was really rough. Like it felt like it could have been worked on a little bit longer, genuinely. Like it was just like not something I felt like I connected the writing style at all. And I know it's a true story, but like the characters, like I didn't really connect with them at all. So that was really hard. It's a beautiful book and it's like really cool that it's her story and I'm glad I read it, but also it's like it wasn't my favorite. It was really hard to connect to the characters and that I'd really like to connect to characters. Unsinkable by Jenny Walsh. So this one was really, really good too. I feel like it is a lot more factual, so if you like historical fiction that's like heavy on historical, this will be good. I, again, kind of felt like I had a hard time connecting with the characters, but their stories were really cool, and I'm always a sucker for anything Titanic themed, so it was still good. Then I reread The Resistance by J.L. Knight. This was one of the books that got me into fantasy or non-magical fantasy way back in the day. So it was really fun to revisit it and like see why I fell in love with it in the first place. So do recommend this book. I have not read the whole series. That's really bad of me to say, but I've heard that there's some like really interesting theological things that take place post book 4, and I've read books 1 through 3. So I don't know if I'm gonna finish it. I also broke the spine, which is really sad. But I do like books 1 through 3, and they're clean and they're not magical fantasy. So if that's your jam, check these out. My feet are falling asleep. I'm gonna like stop sitting on them now. Okay. So next up, which I'm gonna do these a little out of order, but I actually read this one first. This is again another reread. I love Nicole Deese. I always love Nicole Deese. Literally every one of her books has been a hit for me. So I reread this one because this was one of my favorites from years ago, and can't recommend enough. It's so good. It's like one of the sweetest. Her Christian romances are the sweetest because they're genuinely so respectful, so clean. They're not focused on the wrong things. They're deep. They're important. They mean something. I love her books. So Before I Called You Mine is so good. It's just the sweetest, and the couple in it are the greatest. And the real life issues are so applicable. So anyway, I love this one. That was a reread, or sort of re-listen. This one I also listened to finally. I don't know how I read this out of order, but I read the second one first and then went back and listened to this one. You can do that. It makes sense. But I listened to this one, and this one's really cute too. I loved this. I actually didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did, but it was so sweet. All that really matters. She's basically like a beauty influencer, and basically just falls in love with like helping teen kids. Like she falls in love with teen kids that she's helping through a ministry opportunity and ends up like changing her whole life and everything, and it's so good. So I really, really liked that one too. Over the Edge by Irene Hannon. This one I got as a review copy. This one was really fun. I actually really, really like this one. Irene Hannon in the past can be like hit or miss for me. I DNF'd like 3 of them the last couple weeks trying to listen to them because I was like, they're her older stuff and they're a little bit, spicy is not the right word because it definitely doesn't have like actual on-screen spice, but it's definitely like more physical attraction focused in her older books. This one was not that way. This one was a really good happy medium. I really liked the mystery. I liked the main character. It's unique because she's a chef and like don't see that very often in these books either. So I really liked this one. Reread Mammoth. So this was my this is my camping read because I had not annotated it yet and I wanted to. So I love Mammoth. I love this series. The 4th book's cover reveal just dropped and pre-orders are available and it's coming out this year finally. I'm so excited, the final chapter. But I am halfway through the 2nd book right now, but I did finish the 1st one as a reread. Love, love, love. I talk about these all the time. You guys probably know that I love them by now, but go check them out. And another Jamie Jo Wright book. We read The Premonition of at Withers Farms. Withers Farm. Okay. The Premonition at Withers Farm. I liked this one too. This one dealt with someone who struggled with infant loss, so if that's a triggering to you, keep that in mind. But I thought it was a really, really beautiful story. I don't know, it was also like one of my favorite enemies to lovers because I actually really liked, so the girl kind of hates, in the historical timeline, this is a dual timeline. In the historical timeline, the girl kind of hates the guy because she thinks he's annoying, but I actually really love him, and like he was annoying in a good way because he's like forced her to like actually own up to her issues. So I really like that. And it's like one of those characters where you're like, do I like this character? I kind of like this character even though the main character hates him. So that was fun twist. But yeah, like it's a little creepy, so keep that in mind because it's Jamie Jo Wright book, but it was good. I really liked it. The Summer We Forgot. I was on a teen thriller kick at this time. It has some content flags, so keep that in mind. I really enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. I was really in the mood for teen thriller mysteries for some reason at this season in my life. It was the middle of summer and I was going through it in the sense of like I just really wanted like the quick thrilling page turners. So this was good. This was so interesting. There's definitely trigger warnings on this that I would say I don't feel like I can personally recommend it to my readership just because of like my clean fiction moniker. There's, like I said, there's some content flags, and one of the like issues deals with sexual abuse from a family member. So that was really hard, and I did not like that part of it just for me personally, but that may not bother some people, so keep that in mind. I will say, like I said, I can't really personally recommend this one just to my personal readership because of what my convictions are content-wise, but like the story outside of the content, if you could skip it, was really interesting. It was really interesting. Which, by the way, this one, Thin Air, this is clean. There's a couple of flags where I think like the main characters kiss, and it's like semi-detailed. Yeah, I think they're just like semi-detailed kisses. I don't think there was anything more than that. This was fascinating. So this is like, it takes place over 8 hours. There's 12 contestants for like a scholarship on a private plane, and people start dying. It's like very much like, what's the book I'm thinking of? The Westing Game. Like it very much feels like the Westing Game in the sense that it's a game. There's high stakes. People are dying. We don't know why. Like it was so good. I really, really liked it. Could not put it down. I've posted about this before because I literally was like freaking out reading the last half. Really, really enjoyed this book. I'm really glad I took a chance on this. It was randomly somebody that like popped into my Instagram feed and I looked it up online and it wasn't Christian, so I was like, I don't know, it's taking a chance because like, it's always a chance when you get a book that's not Christian. But this was so good and like very clean as far as I would be concerned. Like I said, there's a couple of kisses in their teens, so if that bothers you, but also she's like, I don't know. The dating thing is weird just because they're teenagers in general, but that's always the case. But this book was so good. The Last Bookshop in London. This was sweet. This was really sweet. This is by Madeline Martin. World War II. Basically, like, they become a haven for people and read stories during the bombings in World War II, and it's like her story. It was really sweet. It was an all-around good read. The Second Messiah by Glenn Mead. This one I listened to. It it was kind of hard to get through, to be honest. Like, there's just so many moving parts. It's very political thriller, but less political. It's very Middle East and the Roman Catholic Church and secrets that have been like hidden for years and years come to light, and like the main character's parents were murdered by the Roman Catholic Church. It's just a lot, but it was really interesting. Like, I'm glad I read it. It was just like it's chunky, like it's heady. There's a lot of moving parts to keep track of, but it was really interesting. It was basically about like finding essentially like the truth slash like this lost document that like verifies something biblically. So anyway, it was cool. It was really interesting to read. Yeah. The Ambition by Lee Strobel. We're getting back to like way in the beginning of the year, but this one was really good too. I love Lee Strobel as well. It was a legal thriller. I feel like it was a really good legal thriller. Yeah, it involved like the mafia basically trying to bribe a legal official, and how that all played out. It was really good. I liked it a lot. All That Is Secret. I listened to this one as well. This one was hard to get into listening to, and it could have been because it was an audiobook. I will say that it was not my favorite book, but I think that's why. I think it's because I listened to it and it was hard to connect to it, I guess. It also, I feel like it sold me on a lot of like glamour and glitz 1920s, and I didn't get any of that. She literally like goes out west and solves a mystery, and it actually feels more like a historical Western in that respect than it does like a glitzy 1920s book. So I think that was part of the problem. Like, I felt like I got one thing and then ended up with something else. So it's a good read though, and it was relatively clean. So if you're interested in like what the story is about, you might still like it. It just wasn't my personal cup of tea. Another Nicole Deese, The Roads We Follow, book 2. Book 1 was one of my favorites. This is book 2 in a series. I think the third one's coming out in the spring, I think. But this is so good. I love her books so much. I genuinely can't rave about them enough. This one was really, really good. So definitely check out anything by Nicole Deese. You will not miss. I think this one I also really resonated with because of like the sister aspect. I have 2 sisters myself, and this character has 2 sisters, and they went on a road trip to kind of sort out, and they ended up having to sort out a lot of family issues. So like, I don't know, it was just a really, really good book, and it was really sweet, and the romance in it was sweet too, and wholesome. Her books are always just like so wholesome. They're like deep and have depth and importance and are wholesome, and I love that. So those are all of the physical books that I have. I read a lot more via listening to them. I had a lot more audiobooks this year because there was a lot of driving and a lot of like working that I did that I will listen to audiobooks on. So there's more that I read that aren't here, but these are a good culmination, or I feel like a good summation / wrap up of everything that I did read. So yeah, hopefully you find a fun new read to read. Yeah, mostly they were quite decent, I will say. Overall, I would say probably like 70% of them I really enjoyed. The other 30% were kind of like, eh. But I didn't really have one that was like horrible, throw across the room worthy. So I feel like that's a win when it comes to reading for the year. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my super rambly, chatty list of books that I read this year. This is a long video, but hopefully you got through all of it.